Austin's sun had yet to rise above the horizon, but the lights were already on in the Trenton house. Alex stood in front of the bedroom mirror, adjusting the knot of his burgundy tie. His reflection, a man in his 40s with a hint of gray in his dark hair, looked collected, ready for another day of work. Birds chirped outside the window, and the familiar hiss of the coffee maker could be heard in the kitchen below. He glanced at the bed. Michelle was still asleep, her blonde hair spread out across the pillow. She was usually the first to rise, but today she seemed to have decided to sleep in. Alex quietly picked up his jacket and went downstairs. The kitchen smelled of freshly brewed coffee and warm bread. Their home outside Austin, a two-story craftsman with white walls and dark wood beams, had been their sanctuary for the past 15 years. The fridge was covered with magnets from family trips: Disneyland, the Grand Canyon, the beach in Galveston. Alex poured coffee into a metal thermos and checked his briefcase: laptop, charger, tickets to a flight to San Jose. This was his third business trip in a month, but he had gotten used to the rhythm. Working as an engineer at a tech company provided the stability he cherished. "Good morning," Michelle's voice came. She walked into the kitchen, tying the belt of her silk robe. Her bob neatly framed her face, but her eyes were tired, as if she hadn't slept well. "Morning," Alex replied, smiling. "I thought you were still asleep." "No, just. A lot of work yesterday." She went to the stove and took out the kettle. "When is your flight?" 10. "I'll be back Thursday night." He took a sip of coffee. "Maybe we can go to La Traviata for dinner when I get back." Michelle nodded, pouring water into the kettle. "Sounds good." Her phone buzzed on the countertop, and she quickly grabbed it, glancing at the screen. "It's a client," she muttered, pocketing the phone. Alex raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Michelle worked remotely as a corporate lawyer, and her calls often came at odd hours. But something about the way she moved abrupt, almost guilty, made his gaze linger. He pushed the thought away. After 20 years of marriage, he knew her habits. She was always the organized one, the one who kept the family calendar in order. If something was wrong, she would say so. He glanced at his watch. 6:50 am, time to go. "See you in a couple of days," he said, picking up his briefcase. "Call me if anything happens." "Of course," Michelle replied, her voice soft but her gaze fixed on the teapot. In the car on the way to the airport, Alex turned on a podcast about cybersecurity, but his mind was wandering. Their life was comfortable: home, kids in college, stable jobs. Emily, their 20-year-old daughter, was studying biology at the University of Texas, and David, 18, a freshman at A&M, was following in his father's footsteps into engineering. He and Michelle rarely argued, though the house had become quieter in recent years with the kids gone. Was that why she was so tired? He decided to ask her about it over dinner when he got back. At the airport, he passed through security, sat at the gate, and opened his laptop. Emails from colleagues in San Jose were waiting to be answered. The cloud conference was important. His team was presenting a new data encryption project. But as he read, he found himself thinking about Michelle, her phone call, her look. He shook his head, closed the laptop. Just nerves before the presentation. Meanwhile, back in Austin, Michelle's day started slowly. She sat at the kitchen table, holding a mug of chamomile tea. Her phone was next to her, the screen glowing with a new message. She opened it, read it, then quickly deleted it. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but she put the phone down and stood to load the dishwasher. The house was too big without the kids, without Alex. She loved the quiet, but sometimes it was overwhelming. Work filled the void, but not completely. By evening, when Alex was already in San Jose, Michelle was alone at home. She turned on her laptop, supposedly for work, but instead of contracts, she opened her calendar. A note for tomorrow: meeting, 7 p.m. She had added it last week without telling Alex. It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. She closed the laptop, went to the window. The street was empty, the streetlights casting a soft glow. Her phone buzzed again, and this time she answered. "Yes," she said quietly, holding the phone to her ear. "Tomorrow will do." "No," He's in San Jose until Thursday. She paused, listening. Just keep this between us, okay? The voice on the other end was low, calm. Michelle nodded, even though the other person couldn't see her. Okay, see you tomorrow. She ended the call, clutching the phone in her hand. Her heart was beating faster than she would have liked. She didn't hear the neighbor's dog bark, didn't notice the shadow that flickered at the edge of their garden. Alex, returning to Austin early because of a canceled session, parked his car 2 blocks from the house. He decided to surprise her, maybe order pizza, watch an old movie like they had in the early years of their marriage. His suitcase rolled behind him, the wheels crunching softly on the asphalt. As he approached the house, he noticed a light on in the kitchen. Smiling, he opened the door, but his footsteps stopped in the hallway. Michelle's voice, low and urgent, came from the kitchen. Yes, tomorrow. Don't worry, he won't find out, she said. Pause. I'll figure it out. Alex froze, his hand still on the suitcase handle. He took a step forward, but the floorboard creaked. Michelle turned, her eyes widening. The phone had disappeared into her robe pocket. Alex? Her voice wavered, but quickly leveled out. Are you back already? Yes, he said, putting down his suitcase. The session was canceled. I decided to come early. She nodded, her fingers fiddling with the belt of her robe. That's great. I was just about to go to bed. I'm tired. He looked at her, trying to catch something in her face. A lie, fear, but her smile was the same as always. Okay, he said finally, I'll go unpack. Michelle went upstairs and Alex stayed in the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator, but he didn't feel like eating. Instead, he went to the wall where family photos hung. One of them was from their 10th anniversary, a trip to Napa. They were laughing, holding glasses of wine, their faces alight. He ran his finger along the glass of the frame. That Alex had trusted Michelle implicitly. But now, standing in the empty kitchen, he felt something inside him tighten. He went up to the bedroom. Michelle was lying with her back to the wall, her breathing even, too even. Alex lay down next to her, but he was awake. His thoughts were spinning. Her words, her gaze, her phone. He closed his eyes, but the house was silent and was louder than he would have liked. The next day, over coffee with his neighbor Tom, Alex mentioned his travel fatigue. Tom, an older man with a good-natured smile, nodded. You know, sometimes family life is like work. You have to pay attention to the little things. He paused. If anything, I have a friend, Lily Danvers, private detective, helps with questions. Alex laughed, waving it off. I definitely don't need that, Tom. But he still saved Lily's number, just in case. Late in the evening, sitting in the living room, Alex opened his laptop to check his schedule. But instead of his calendar, he accidentally opened the one synced with Michelle's phone. One entry caught his eye, meeting 7 p.m. Today, he frowned. She hadn't said anything about plans. Closing the laptop, he leaned back on the couch. The hum of the plane drowned out Alex's thoughts as he stared out the window. The clouds beneath his wings seemed thick as cotton wool, but his eyes were empty. The flight from Austin to San Jose had lasted just over 3 hours, and he was already wishing he'd brought a book. Instead of work or sleep, his mind was racing back to the night before, to Michelle's voice in the kitchen, to the sudden movement she made when she put her phone away. He pulled out his smartphone and opened their shared calendar. The entry for meeting 7 p.m. was still there, with no details. Alex frowned, closed the app, and put his phone away. It's just work, he told himself. But the words he won't find out from her conversation echoed in my head. At the San Jose airport, he took a cab to his hotel. The cloud conference was starting the next day, but he had dinner with colleagues that evening. Alex dropped his suitcase in his room, changed into a fresh shirt, and went down to the lobby. Waiting for him was Sarah Claire, a colleague from their Austin office with whom he had been working on an encryption project. Sarah, in her 40s, with short brown hair and a sharp gaze, was one of those people who always spoke plainly. You look like you haven't slept in a week, she said as they got into a taxi heading to the restaurant. Business trips, Alex shrugged, forcing himself to smile. And you? Oh, I'm fine, except my son has decided that college is a place for partying and not studying. She rolled her eyes, but her tone was warm. What about you? How's Michelle? Alex hesitated. It's fine. She's busy. Work. Sarah narrowed her eyes, but didn't press. Well, if anything happens, I'm here. Business trips are a great time to talk. The restaurant, a trendy place with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown San Jose, was full. Their team, 6 people from different offices, had occupied a table by the window. The conversation revolved around work, new algorithms, competitors, rumors of acquisitions. Alex tried to participate, but his mind wandered. He nodded when someone asked about the project's timeline, but the same calendar entry popped into his head. Meeting 19 is why didn't she mention it? After dinner, Sarah suggested they walk back to the hotel. The night air was cool, and the streets of San Jose were humming with traffic and voices. They walked in silence until Sarah spoke. Okay, Alex, what's wrong with you? You've been somewhere else all evening. He sighed, shoving his hands into his pockets. Just family stuff. Nothing serious. She paused, looking at him. Family matters? Is that code for wife acting weird? Alex froze. What makes you think that? Because I've been there, she said, her voice quieter. My first husband, a couple of years ago, I noticed he was secretive. Phone in his pocket, calls at night, meetings. I ignored it until it was too late. She paused. I don't want to pry, but if something's wrong, trust your instincts. Alex stared at the sidewalk, his throat tightening. Michelle, she was on the phone late last night. Something about a meeting I wouldn't know about, and she had an entry in her calendar that she didn't mention. Sarah nodded, her face serious. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but check, just to be sure. They reached the hotel, and Sarah said goodnight. In the room, Alex sat on the bed and opened his laptop. He went back to their shared calendar. The entry for meeting 7 p.m. has been supplemented with another one for tomorrow, dinner with a colleague. He frowned. Michelle rarely dined with colleagues, especially without telling him. He tried to remember the last time she had mentioned someone from work. Names flashed through his mind, but nothing specific. He closed his calendar and opened his bank app. It was a routine action, checking his balance before a trip. But as he scrolled through the transactions, he froze. Yesterday, 6:32 p.m., $325 charge. A lingerie store in downtown Austin. His heart started beating faster. Michelle never spent that much on herself. She preferred practical clothes, and her lingerie was bought in stores, not boutiques. He checked again, thinking it was a mistake. But no, the transaction was confirmed. Alex leaned back in his chair, his fingers curling around the edge of his laptop. Maybe it was a gift, but for whom? He remembered their last anniversary. He'd given her a silver necklace, and she'd given him a leather briefcase. Nothing like $300 lingerie. He closed the app, but the image of the purchase lingered. The next day, the conference began with a keynote. Alex sat in the room, taking notes, but his mind was elsewhere. He imagined Michelle in their kitchen, her phone, her voice. During a break, he texted her, "How are you? Everything okay?" The answer came an hour later, "Everything is fine. Work. Good luck with the presentation, short, no warmth." He gritted his teeth, putting the phone away. At lunchtime, he met Sarah again in the conference center cafeteria. She was eating a sandwich and scrolling on her tablet. "How are you?" she asked, without looking up. "It's fine," he lied. "I just found something weird in the banking app. Buying lingerie. Expensive. Michelle doesn't buy that kind of stuff." Sarah put the tablet down, her gaze becoming attentive. "How much?" $325. She whistled. "It's not just like that." She paused, then added, "Look, I'm not saying she's cheating, but when I found the same oddities, I started asking questions. Not directly, but, checking. Phone, calendar, correspondence. I don't want to spy on her, Alex said, his voice sharper than he expected. I understand, Sarah replied, but it's better to know than to guess. If everything is clear, you'll apologize and forget. If not, she didn't finish, but her look was eloquent. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Alex gave a presentation, answered questions, but everything was on autopilot. In the evening, back in his room, he opened the calendar again. Now there was another entry, consultation 6 p.m. for the day after tomorrow. He tried to remember when Michelle had started meeting so often. A year ago? 2? Work required meetings, of course, but not like this. He lay down on his bed, staring at the ceiling. He remembered their trip to Lake Tahoe 5 years ago. Emily and David had been teenagers, all boating together, laughing, eating fried fish around a campfire. Michelle had been different than open warm. She had held his hand while the kids argued over who could row better. When did things change? He rolled over, trying to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. The next morning, before another session, he called Michelle. Hi, he said, trying to sound casual. How was yesterday? What was the meeting? Oh, nothing special, she said. Her voice was light, but Alex could hear the tension. Just some work stuff, discussing the contract. At 7 in the evening, he asked, unable to restrain himself. Pause. Yes, a client from another time zone. She laughed, but it was forced. Are you following me? No, I just saw it on the calendar, he said, feeling his throat tighten. Okay, I have to get to my exam. Good luck, she replied and hung up. Alex stared at his phone, his fingers tightening around the frame. She hadn't mentioned dinner with a coworker. She hadn't mentioned lingerie. He opened the banking app again, but there were no new transactions. Just the $325 won, like a taunt. He closed the app, but a decision was forming. He wouldn't snoop, like Sarah had suggested, but he would be more careful. He'd check his calendar. He'd talk to her when he got back. If it was nothing, he'd apologize. If not, he stood up, gathered his things, and headed to the conference. But there was a feeling growing in his chest that he couldn't name. It wasn't anger, it wasn't fear, it was something in between. He knew one thing: coming home would never be the same again. Leave a like and subscribe. For you, the button is a moment. For the channel, it's a step forward. Thank you for being with us, and for listening. You are the best. There are already 38,000 of us. Let's round this number up to 40,000. And don't forget to share your emotions after listening to the story in the comments. Rain pounded the windshield as Alex drove home from the Austin airport. His flight from San Jose had landed late, and the roads were slick with a sudden downpour. He turned on the windshield wipers, their rhythmic swishing mixing with the rumble of the radio he wasn't listening to. His thoughts returned to his conversation with Sarah, to her words, "Trust your instincts." The $325 purchase of lingerie and the entry on his calendar, dinner with a coworker, still burned inside him. He tried to convince himself that it meant nothing, but doubts grew like shadows on a rainy evening. The house greeted him with silence. The light in the living room was off. Only a faint glow from the kitchen filtered into the hallway. Alex put his suitcase by the door and took off his wet jacket. Michelle, he called, but there was no answer. He walked into the kitchen, where her mug of cold tea sat on the table. Michelle's phone lay nearby, the screen dark. He froze, looking at it. In San Jose, Sarah had offered to check their messages, but Alex had waved him off. Now his fingers trembled, but he turned away. Not now. I'm home, he called louder, climbing the stairs. The sound of the shower came from the bedroom. He knocked. Mitchell, are you there? Yes, her voice was muffled. Just got back. Give me 5 minutes. Where did you come back from? He asked, trying to sound casual. From the office, she answered quickly. The meeting ran long. Alex nodded, even though she couldn't see him. She worked remotely, but sometimes drove into downtown Austin to meet with colleagues. Nothing out of the ordinary. But why was her car downtown yesterday when she said she was staying home? He went back downstairs, opened the fridge, and got out a bottle of water. His gaze fell on the family calendar on the wall. Tomorrow, Emily and David for dinner. He smiled. The kids rarely came home from college, and their visits were a breath of fresh air. By dinner the next day, the house was alive. Emily, in her favorite denim jacket, was talking about biology labs, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. David, his hair wild, was joking about his professors at A&M. Michelle was chopping a salad, her movements precise but her face tense. Alex watched her, trying to discern what had changed. She smiled at the children, but her laughter seemed muffled, as if she were acting. "Dad, are you going back to San Jose next week?" David asked, taking a bite of pizza. "Yes," Alex replied, sipping his wine. "The project needs to be closed. And what about you, engineer?" "I'm surviving," David grinned. "But your coding stories help me. Maybe you can find an internship at your company this summer." "I'll talk to the boss," Alex promised, but his gaze slid to Michelle. She was silent, looking at her plate. "Mom, are you okay?" Emily frowned. "You're so quiet." Michelle looked up, her smile quick. "Just tired. Work, you know. Contracts, clients." "But you work from home," Emily said, squinting. "What, are they sending you to the office now?" "Sometimes," Michelle replied, looking away. "Sometimes we need to meet in person." Alex felt his throat tighten. He wanted to ask about yesterday's meeting, but not in front of the kids. Instead, he changed the subject. "Emily, how are your labs? Have you found your Nobel yet?" She laughed, and the conversation turned to school. But Alex noticed Michelle sneaking a look at his phone under the table. His hand was gripping his fork a little tighter than it should have been. After dinner, the kids went back to their dorms, and Michelle went into the office, citing an urgent call. Alex stayed behind to clear away the dishes. He was loading the dishes into the dishwasher when he heard her voice from behind the door, low and urgent. "No, tomorrow won't work," she said. "Let's do it on Friday." A pause. "He's on a trip again." Alex froze, water dripping from the faucet onto his hands. He turned off the faucet, dried his hands, and went out into the backyard. There, under an old oak tree, sat their neighbor Tom, drinking beer. Tom, a 60-year-old widower with a good-natured smile, had been their neighbor since they moved in. "Hey, Alex," he called. "Back from your travels?" "Just now," Alex replied, sitting down on the chair next to him. "How are you?" "As always," Tom shrugged, "and you look like the world has collapsed." Alex chuckled, but his voice was heavy. "It's just a lot of work, and at home, I don't know. Michelle's been acting weird." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Weird? How so?" "Calls at night. Meetings she doesn't talk about." Alex paused, then added, "Yesterday her car was in the center, although she said she was at home." Tom took a sip of beer, looking at it thoughtfully. "You know, marriage is a complicated thing. Sometimes little things seem like mountains. But if it's really bothering you..." He pulled a business card out of his pocket and handed it to Alex. "Lily Danvers, private detective. Helped me with a case a couple of years ago. Reliable." Alex took the card, but his fingers trembled. "Detective? Tom, that's too much." "Maybe so," said Tom, "but it's better to know than to guess. Here, just in case." Alex pocketed the card and changed the subject to the weather, but Tom's words stuck in his head. When he returned to the house, he found Michelle at her laptop, her fingers typing rapidly. "All done?" he asked, trying to sound even. "Almost," she replied without looking up. "Fixed-term contract." He nodded, but his gaze fell on her bag by the door. The edge of a silk blouse was sticking out, new and bright red, not her style. He remembered buying lingerie. "Where were you yesterday?" he asked, unable to contain himself. "You said you were at home, but I saw your car on Congress Avenue." Michelle froze, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "I stopped by to pick up some paperwork," she said, finally looking up. "I forgot to mention. What, are you following me?" No, he answered quickly. I just noticed. She smiled, but it was a strained smile. It's okay, Alex. It's just work. He nodded, but her words did not calm him. That night he went to bed, but his thoughts did not give him peace. He remembered how he and Michelle had danced at a friend's wedding 10 years ago, how she had laughed, clinging to him. He had not doubted her then. Now, every call, every phrase she said seemed a mystery. The next day, driving through downtown Austin on business, Alex spotted her car outside a cafe on 6th Street. He slowed, his heart pounding. She said she'd be home all day. He parked nearby, watching. Michelle came out of the cafe, wearing the same scarlet blouse, her hair shining. Under the sun, she got into the car and drove away. Alex didn't follow her, but his hands tightened on the steering wheel. He pulled Lily Danvers's business card out of his pocket and turned it over in his fingers. The solution was close, but he wasn't ready yet. When he got home, he opened his laptop. A new entry appeared on the calendar. Consultation with partner, 6 p.m. Friday. He closed the laptop, feeling something inside him break. The morning coffee at the Lamar Street Cafe smelled bitter, but Alex barely noticed the taste. He sat by the window, watching the cars go by, and twirled Lily Danvers's business card in his fingers. The name, Danvers Investigations, was printed in black, next to a phone number and an address in downtown Austin. He'd already dialed the number 3 times, but each time he'd hung up before getting through. After a week of hesitation, fueled by Michelle's lies about her meeting last night and that scarlet blouse, he'd finally made up his mind. Tom's card felt as heavy in his pocket as the weight of his own thoughts. He took a deep breath, dialed the number, and pressed call. Danvers, a female voice answered, firm but not harsh. Who is it? Hello, my name is Alex Trenton, he began, his voice unsure. Tom Haley gave me your number, said you helped with personal matters. A pause on the other end. Tom, huh? Nice guy. The voice softened. What's the question, Alex? It's personal. Can we meet? Today, if possible. Today at 2, my office building on Congress Avenue, 5th floor. Is that okay? Yes, he replied, feeling his heart pounding. Thank you. Lily's office was small, squeezed between a real estate office and a yoga studio. The walls were covered with Austin maps and old photographs, and her desk was piled high with folders. Lily Danvers, in her 40s, with short dark hair and a watchful gaze, rose from her desk as Alex walked in. Her handshake was firm, her smile reserved but warm. Sit down, Alex, she said, pointing to a chair. Coffee? No, thank you. He sat down, clasping his hands in his lap. I don't know where to begin. Start with what's bothering you, Lily said, her tone businesslike but not cold. Tom doesn't throw my number around for no reason. Alex nodded, looking at his palms. It's about my wife, Michelle. She's behaving strangely. Calls at night, meetings she doesn't talk about. I saw her car downtown when she said she was home. And a purchase from a bank, underwear she never wore. He paused, feeling how ridiculous the words sounded. Maybe I'm imagining things, but I can't help but think about it. Lily was writing something down in her notebook, her pen moving quickly. How long has this been going on? A couple of months, maybe more. He shrugged. She always used to talk about work. Now, it's all a secret. I see, Lily said, putting her pen down. You want me to follow her? Find out where she goes, who she meets. Alex swallowed. The word snooped sounded like betrayal. I don't want to spy, he said. I just need to know what's going on, for peace of mind. It's not spying, Lily said, her voice even. It's fact-checking. If it's clean, you sleep soundly. If it's not, you make decisions. She paused, looking at him. I've been through it. My ex-husband. Well, let's say I learned to trust, but not to verify. Did you get divorced? Alex asked, surprised by her frankness. 10 years ago, she nodded. He found someone younger. I found out too late. She shrugged, but there was a shadow in her eyes. That's why I'm here now, helping people not stay in the dark. Alex nodded, feeling strangely relieved by her words. Okay, what do I need to do? Tell me when she leaves the house, what her habits are. Anything you know about her schedule. I'll start with observation, nothing invasive. She opened her laptop. Name, address, photo if you have one. It'll speed things up. Alex pulled out his phone, texted Lily a photo of Michelle from their last trip. He told her about her meetings, the calendar, and the car on 6th Street. Lily listened carefully, taking notes. I'll start tomorrow, she said. Give me a couple of days, and I'll let you know what I find. It'll be $300 a day, plus expenses. Is that okay? Yes, he said, though the amount made him wince. Just be careful. I don't want her to find out. That's my job, Lily smiled. No one will know. Back at home, Alex felt his shoulders sag under the weight of his decision. Michelle was in the living room, leafing through a magazine, her phone lying next to her. How was your day? He asked, trying to sound casual. It's fine, she answered without looking up. And you? The usual, he lied. Back to San Jose tomorrow. She nodded, turning the page. Good luck. Alex went into his office and closed the door. He opened his laptop, but instead of working, he stared at the screen. The thought of Lily spying on Michelle made him sick. He remembered their 5th anniversary when they renewed their vows in the backyard. Michelle had stood there in a white dress, her eyes shining as she said, I will always be with you. He had believed her then. He had believed her without question. Now, every step she took seemed a mystery. The next day, Lily started work. She parked a block from the Trentons' house, her gray Toyota blending in with the other cars. Michelle left the house at 5:30 p.m., wearing the same scarlet blouse Alex had seen on 6th Street. She got into her silver hatchback and drove downtown. Lily followed at a distance, her camera on the passenger seat. Michelle parked outside a law firm on Congress Avenue and walked inside. Lily noted the time. 5:50 p.m. An hour later, Michelle came out. But she wasn't alone, she was with a man in his 40s, wearing a dark suit. They stood by her car talking, then went their separate ways. Lily took a few photos, but didn't come any closer. That night, Alex couldn't sleep. He lay in his bedroom, listening to Michelle's even breathing. Her phone was on the nightstand, the screen dark. He wanted to pick it up, check his messages, but he stopped himself. Instead, he got up and went down to the living room. There, on the shelf, was their wedding photo. He picked it up, ran his finger along the glass. They were so young, so confident. He remembered how Michelle had laughed when he spilled champagne on his shirt that day. Now he couldn't remember the last time she had laughed like that with him. The next day, Lily called. There's something, she said, her voice calm. Your wife is often at the law firm downtown. She met a man yesterday, but it's not clear who he is. I'll continue. Follow. Want me to dig deeper? Yes, Alex replied, his voice hoarse. But just the facts, nothing extra. Got it, Lily said. I'll be in touch in a couple of days. He hung up, his hands shaking. He didn't want this. He didn't want to suspect Michelle. He didn't want to hire a detective. But the lies he'd heard, the purchases he couldn't explain, and her distant gaze, all of it drove him forward. Fog settled over Austin like a gray blanket, dimming the streetlights on the Trenton Street. Alex stood at the living room window, watching the rain cascade down the glass. His suitcase, packed for yet another business trip to San Jose, lay by the door, but he had no ticket for the flight. He'd called his boss that morning, claiming he was unwell, asking to reschedule the trip. It was the first lie he'd lied to in years, but the guilt was drowned out by anxiety. Lily Danvers had promised to keep an eye on Michelle today, and Alex couldn't leave knowing the truth might be close. Are you sure you're okay? Michelle asked as she came down the stairs. She was wearing a black dress, her hair done up more neatly than usual. You're pale. Just tired, Alex replied, turning away from the window. I decided to stay home for a couple of days. San Jose can wait. She nodded, but her eyes lingered on his face a little longer. Okay, I'm late today, meeting downtown. Don't wait for dinner. Work again? He asked, trying to sound casual, but his voice wavered. Yes, she said, picking up her bag. Client from California, urgent contract. She smiled, but it was a tight smile. See you tomorrow. The door closed behind her and Alex exhaled. He took out his phone and texted Lily. She left. Black dress, silver hatchback. The answer came within a minute. On site. I'll keep you posted. He sat on the couch, clutching his phone as if it might provide answers. The last few days had been excruciating. Michelle's lies about her whereabouts, the scarlet blouse, the visits to the law firm. He still hoped it was a mistake, but that hope was fading with every evasive glance she gave him. Lily parked 2 blocks from the Trenton house, her Toyota nearly disappearing into the fog. She checked the camera, adjusted the rearview mirror. As Michelle's silver hatchback pulled out of the driveway, Lily started the engine and followed, keeping her distance. Downtown traffic was heavy, but she kept her car in sight. Michelle parked outside Perseus Restaurant, an upscale place with plate glass windows and soft lighting. Lily stopped across the street, her fingers on the camera. Michelle walked into the restaurant, her dress standing out against the dark facade. A few minutes later, a man joined her tall, in a dark gray suit, with a confident gait. They sat by the window, their table lit by soft candlelight. Lily took a few pictures, zooming in. The man was in his 40s, with a neat haircut and a charming smile. They spoke, leaning closer to each other, and Lily noticed Michelle touch his arm. She sent Alex a text. She's in Perseus. Male, suit, about 40. Photo later. Continue. Alex, sitting in a cafe a few miles from home, almost dropped his phone when he read the message. The Perseus was not a place for business. He had been there with Michelle for their 15th anniversary, a dinner that had cost a fortune. His fingers hovered over the screen, then he wrote yes. Go ahead. He ordered another coffee, although his hands were already shaking from adrenaline. He tried to imagine Michelle at that table, but the image was alien, like from someone else's life. At home, before leaving, he went into their bedroom to get his charger. Her jewelry box was on the dresser, slightly ajar. He hadn't meant to look, but his gaze caught on a new bracelet silver, with a small pendant. He hadn't given her that. His stomach clenched, and he closed the box as he left. Now, in the cafe, he replayed the moment, adding it to the list. Lingerie, blouse, bracelet, Perseus. Lily watched the restaurant for another hour. Michelle and the man walked out together, and he held the door for her. They stopped at her car, exchanged a few words, then went their separate ways. Lily took one last photo, noting the time. 8:45 p.m. She sent it to Alex. They're gone. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., my cafe on Lamar. I'll bring a photo. She started the car, feeling the familiar tension. Things like this always left a bitter taste. Alex returned home late, when the fog had grown thicker. Michelle was not there yet. He turned on the TV, but stared into space. Around midnight, he heard the door open. Michelle walked in, her heels clicking on the parquet. Are you awake? She asked, taking off her coat. I can't sleep, he replied, looking at the screen. How was the meeting? It's tiring, she said, heading for the stairs. The client is demanding. I'm going to shower and sleep. At Perseus? He asked, unable to contain himself. His voice was even, but his heart was pounding. She froze, her hand on the railing. What? She turned, her eyes narrowing. It's just. You're wearing a dress. I thought maybe dinner was somewhere fancy, he said, feeling his throat tighten. No, she replied, her tone sharpening. Just a regular cafe. Are you testing me? No, he lied, looking away. I was just asking. She looked at him, then went upstairs. Alex turned off the TV, his hands clenched into fists. She had lied. Again, he went to bed, but he couldn't sleep. He imagined her at Perseus with a man he didn't know. It was worse than not knowing. The next morning, he met Lily at a cafe on Lamar Street. She was sitting in the corner, a folder in front of her. "Good morning," she said, but her tone was serious. "Coffee?" "No," Alex answered, sitting down. "What do you have?" Lily opened the folder, showing several printed photos. Michelle in a black dress, the man in a suit. They were sitting close, her hand touching his sleeve. "That was yesterday," Lily said. "The Perseus restaurant. They were there for about an hour. I don't know who he is yet. Do you want me to find out?" Alex stared at the photo, his throat dry. "Yes," he said finally. "Find out who he is. And keep watching." Lily nodded, closing the folder. "Alex, can I tell you something?" She paused, her gaze softening. "I've been there. My husband, I found him with someone else a year after we got married. Ignored the signs because I was afraid of the truth. Don't make my mistake. If it's nothing, you'll be relieved. If it's not, you'll be ready." "Thank you," he said, his voice quiet. "It's just, I didn't think it would come to this." "Nobody thinks," Lily said, her smile bitter. "I'll call when there's something new." Alex left the cafe, clutching the folder. He got into his car, but didn't start the engine. He opened the photo again, looking at Michelle. Her smile in the picture was one he hadn't seen in months. He remembered their first meeting in college. She'd laughed at his awkward joke, her eyes shining. Now she was smiling at someone else. The light from the desk lamp cast shadows on the walls of Lily Danvers' office as Alex sat across from him, clutching a folder of photographs. It was a cloudy Austin morning, and the gray outside the window reflected his mood. It had been a week since he had seen Michelle in the pictures at Perseus, her hand brushing the sleeve of a stranger. Lily had promised more information, and now, looking at her serious face, Alex felt his stomach clench. The folder lay in front of him, but he was in no hurry to open it. He knew that the truth he was seeking could ruin everything. "Ready?" Lily asked, her voice calm but wary. She pushed a small recorder toward him. "This is from the day before yesterday. And a photo." Alex nodded, his fingers shaking as he opened the folder. The first photo, Michelle at a cafe on 6th Street, the same man across the street, their heads tilted toward each other. The second, them leaving a law firm, his arm around her waist. The third, Michelle getting into the man's car, a black sedan parked outside the hotel. Alex swallowed, his throat dry. "Who is he?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Michael Sharp," Lily answered, opening her laptop. "A lawyer, works at the same firm as Michelle. 42 years old, married, and 2 kids. I checked his social media profile. He and Michelle have been on the same project for 6 months now." Alex stared at the photo, trying to memorize Michael's face. The neat haircut, the easy smile, the confident gaze. He looked like the kind of man Michelle might choose for a business meeting. But his hand on her waist told a different story. "Audio?" he asked, gesturing toward the recorder. Lily nodded. "Recorded in a cafe. I was at the next table. Press play." Alex pressed the button, and Michelle's voice filled the room. "Only 2 days of the conference in San Jose," she said, her tone light and a hint of laughter. "Then Las Vegas. You, me, and, well, this guy." She laughed, and a male voice, Michael, joined in. "Sounds like a plan. Got a hotel booked yet?" Alex felt the blood drain from his face. He stopped the recording, his fingers tightening around the recorder. "Las Vegas," he whispered. "She said it was a business trip." Lily was silent, her gaze full of sympathy. "There's more," she said quietly. "Want to hear it?" "No," he answered sharply, then softened. "That's enough for now." He put the recorder aside and closed the folder. His hands were shaking, and he hid them under the table. "Is this definitely her?" "Yes," said Lily. "I saw her. It's not a mistake." Alex nodded, his gaze falling to the floor. He remembered their last trip to Las Vegas, 7 years ago. He and Michelle had walked the strip, laughing at the brightly colored signs, holding hands. Now she was planning to go there with someone else. He stood, feeling his legs buckle. "Thank you, Lily. I need time." Sure, she said. Call me if you decide what to do next. I can dig deeper. He walked away, clutching the folder, and got into his car. It had started raining again, drops pattering on the roof. He didn't start the engine, just sat there looking at the photo. Michelle was smiling at Michael in a way she hadn't smiled at him in months. He closed his eyes, but her laugh from the recording still rang in his ears. He returned home, but Michelle was at another meeting. The house was empty, and the silence was oppressive. Alex called Sarah, his colleague from San Jose. She was in Austin, finishing up a report, and agreed to meet at a nearby bar. The bar was loud, smelling of beer and fried chicken wings. Sarah sat at the counter, her tablet at her side. "You look worse than you did in San Jose," she said, sipping her beer. "What happened?" He put the folder on the table, but didn't open it. "I hired a detective. Found evidence. She's seeing someone, planning a trip to Las Vegas." Sarah whistled, her eyes widening. "Damn, Alex. I'm sorry." She paused, then added, "Did you talk to her?" "I can't," he said, his voice shaking. "I asked about Perseus, she lied. If I show her the photo, it'll ruin everything." "Maybe it's for the best," Sarah said, her tone hardening. "My ex lied for years. When I found out, I was mad at myself for not acting sooner. You have to protect yourself. Legally, financially." "Legally?" he asked again, frowning. "Yes," she nodded. "In Texas, the property is divided 50/50ths in a divorce. If she's hiding something, like spending your money, that could affect it. Check the accounts, freeze them if necessary, and get a lawyer." She looked at him. "You don't want to end up with nothing, do you?" Alex shook his head, but her words echoed. Divorce. He wasn't ready to even think about it, but the image of Michelle and Michael wouldn't let go. "I don't know what to do," he admitted. "I still love her." "I understand," Sarah said, her voice softening. "But love doesn't mean tolerating lies. Think about yourself and the children. Emily and David. He didn't tell them anything, but he knew their world would collapse too if the truth came out." He finished his coffee, said goodbye to Sarah, and drove home. Michelle was already asleep, her phone on the nightstand. He looked at her, trying to see the woman he'd married, but all he saw was her smiling at Michael from the photo. That night, he opened his laptop and started researching divorces in Texas. Law firm websites explained that the state had a community property rule, splitting everything acquired during the marriage 50/50ths. He found articles about freezing accounts, protecting assets. It was a foreign language, but he read until his eyes watered. He checked their joint account. There were no new suspicious transactions, but the lingerie purchase still sat there, like a reminder. The next day, he called the bank and asked about the procedure for freezing accounts. The employee explained that he needed a lawyer and a statement. Alex wrote it down, but did not dare to act. Instead, he wrote to Lily, "Go ahead. Find everything you can." He felt like a traitor, but the truth was harder than the unknown. He returned to his work, trying to distract himself. But every time he closed his eyes, he heard her voice, "Las Vegas. You, me, and this guy." He remembered their first trip there, dancing in the casino, her laughing when he lost $20 in the slot machines. Those memories seemed foreign now. He clenched his fists, staring at his reflection in the monitor. He didn't know how to talk to Michelle, but he knew he had to be prepared. The Trenton kitchen smelled of freshly brewed coffee, but the atmosphere was heavy, like before a storm. Alex stood at the sink, his fingers wrapped around his mug as he looked at Michelle. She sat at the table, scrolling through her tablet, her blonde hair falling around her face. The folder of photos of Lily had been sitting in his desk drawer for 2 days, ever since he heard the tape about Las Vegas. For 2 days he had waited to ask the question, but each time the words had gotten stuck in his throat. Today he couldn't wait any longer. His heart was pounding, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "Michelle, we need to talk," he said, placing the mug on the table. She looked up, her eyebrows raising slightly. "About what?" Her tone was light, but her fingers hovered over the screen. Alex took a deep breath, pulled a folder out of his bag, and placed it in front of her. "About this," he said, opening the folder. The photos landed on the table. Michelle and Perseus with Michael Sharp, her hand on his sleeve, their smiles. "Explain." Michelle froze, her gaze darting from the photos to Alex. Her face paled, but she quickly composed herself. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Were you following me?" "Not me," he said, his tone hardening. "Detective, you lied about Perseus, about the meetings, about everything. Who is he, Mitchell?" She swallowed, her fingers tightening on the edge of the table. "It's Michael Sharp, a colleague. We work together. It's just dinner." "Just dinner?" Alex raised his voice, his hand shaking. "At the Perseus, with your hand on his waist? And Las Vegas? I heard the recording, Mitchell. You're planning a trip with him." Her eyes widened, and for a second she looked like she was going to cry. Instead, she stood up, crossing her arms. "You hired a detective?" Her voice became sharp. "You don't trust me." "Should I?" he asked, stepping closer. "You've been lying for weeks. $300 lingerie, a blouse, a bracelet, meetings I know nothing about. I saw you with him, Michelle. This isn't work." She turned away, her shoulders tense. The silence lasted an eternity. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet, almost a whisper. "Okay, yeah, it's more than just work." She turned to him, her eyes shining with tears. "Michael, he was there when you left. When the kids left, I felt alone." Alex felt the floor give way beneath his feet. He'd been expecting it, but the words still hit him like a fist. "Alone?" he asked, his voice shaking. 20 years, Mitchell. I've been here. Always." "Not always," she said, her tone sharpening. "You're on your business trips, on your projects, and I'm home, alone, with contracts and an empty house." Michael, he listened. He was there. "And that justifies cheating?" Alex asked, his voice breaking. He pointed at the photo. "This isn't just talk. You were planning a weekend with him. In Las Vegas." Michelle closed her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said. "It started out as work. A project together. Then, I don't know. He made me feel needed." She looked at him. "What about you? When was the last time you asked me how I was? When was the last time we talked about something other than the kids or the bills?" Alex opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come. He thought back to their last months, his trips, her late-night calls, their silent dinners. He wanted to argue, but part of him knew she was right. He pulled away, immersed in his work. But that didn't excuse her. "You could have told me," he finally managed. "Instead, you chose him." "I was wrong," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I still love you." The words should have brought relief, but instead they cut deeper. "Do you love me?" he asked, his voice full of bitterness. "This is not love, Mitchell." He turned to leave, but stopped. "I don't know what's next, but I can't stay here." He grabbed his keys and walked out without looking back. The rain had stopped, but the air was damp, heavy. He got into his car, not knowing where he was going until he pulled up to a motel on the outskirts of Austin. Checking in took 5 minutes, and soon he was sitting on the edge of his bed, staring at the blank walls. His phone buzzed a text from Emily. "Dad, are you home? I want to come by tomorrow." He didn't answer. Instead, he dialed her number. "Emily," he said when she answered, "I need to talk to you. You and David." "What happened?" Her voice was worried. "Dad, are you okay?" "Not really," he said, clutching the phone. "Just come tomorrow. Both of you. I'll explain." "Okay," she said quietly. "We will." He called David, repeating the same thing. David, as always, tried to be funny. "Dad, are you talking about taxes again? I'm not making any money yet." But hearing the seriousness in his father's voice, he agreed to come. Alex hung up, feeling his chest tighten. He didn't want to drag the kids into this, but they deserved to know. Not everything, but at least part of the truth. He pulled his wedding ring out of his pocket. He'd taken it off before bed, a habit he'd had since the early years of their marriage. The engraving inside Love M was nearly worn away by time. He remembered the day Michelle had given it to him, their first anniversary. She'd said it was a reminder that they would always be together. Those words seemed empty now. He squeezed the ring in his fist, but didn't put it back on. The night in the motel was sleepless. He lay staring at the ceiling, replaying their argument. Her tears, her words about being alone. He felt angry, but also guilty. Maybe he really had pulled away. Maybe he could have noticed sooner. But her choice is Michael, Las Vegas. The lies were not his fault. He rolled over, trying to sleep, but the image of her smiling in the photo with Michael kept coming back. In the morning, he came home to get his things. Michelle was in the kitchen, her eyes red. "Alex," she began, but he raised his hand. "Not now," he said. "I'm not ready to talk." She nodded, her lips trembling. He went into the bedroom, gathered up a bag of clothes. When he came down, she was still standing at the table, holding the same mug. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said quietly. "But that's how it happened," he replied, his voice cold. He walked out without looking back. In the car, he called Sarah. "I talked to her," he said without preamble. "She confessed. It's true." "Shit," Sarah breathed. "What now?" "I don't know," he admitted. "She says she's wrong, but I can't believe her." "And you shouldn't," Sarah said. "Get a lawyer, Alex. Protect yourself. And talk to the kids. They need to know." He nodded, even though she couldn't see him. "Thank you, Sarah." "Hang in there," she replied, "and call me if anything happens." Alex went to the motel. The motel on the outskirts of Austin smelled of damp and cheap detergent. Alex sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the suitcase he hadn't unpacked. It had been a night since he'd left home after an argument with Michelle, and her confession about Michael Sharp still burned inside him. Her words, "I felt lonely," sounded in his head, but brought no relief. He knew he had to act, but every step seemed like an abyss. His phone was lying nearby, the screen lit up with messages from Emily and David. "We're on our way. We'll be there at 10. He took a deep breath, preparing himself for the conversation he dreaded. In the morning, he met with a lawyer he had found through an internet search. Janet Wilson's office was in a downtown building with plate glass windows. Janet, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair, greeted him with a warm smile, but her eyes were businesslike. "Mr. Trenton, sit down," she said, gesturing to a leather chair. "Tell me what brings you here." Alex put the folder with Lily's photos on the table, but didn't open it. "My wife. She admitted to having an affair. I want to know what to do next. Divorce, probably." Janet nodded, opening her notebook. "Sorry. Let's start with the basics. Texas has a community property rule. Everything you acquire during your marriage is split evenly. Joint accounts, house, cars. Any kids?" "Yes, 2, he replied. "But they're grown up now, in college." "That simplifies things," she said. "Child support is not required, but spousal support is possible if the court decides." She looked at him. "You mentioned an affair. Do you have any evidence?" Alex opened the folder and showed the photo. Detective. Photo, audio. She was meeting with a colleague, planning a trip. Janet looked at the pictures, her expression neutral. "That will help if it comes to court. But first, I recommend freezing the joint accounts. If she spends money on," she hesitated, "personal needs, it could complicate the division of property. I'll prepare the paperwork." "Freeze the accounts?" Alex asked, his voice shaking. "Is that legal?" "Yes," she replied, "with an application and a marriage certificate. This will protect your finances while the process is ongoing." She handed him the form. "Fill this out, I'll send it to the bank." Alex nodded, but his hand shook as he picked up the pen. Freezing the accounts felt like another betrayal, but Sarah's words from the bar, "protect yourself," echoed in his head. He filled out the form, signed it, feeling something inside him break. How long will the divorce take? He asked. A few months, if there are no complications, Janet replied. I'll start preparing the paperwork. Call me if you have any questions. Alex walked out of the office, his legs weak. He got into his car, but instead of going to the motel, he drove home to meet Emily and David. When he walked in, Michelle was in the living room, her eyes red, but she said nothing. The kids will be here soon, he said, not looking at her. I'll talk to them. What are you going to tell them? She asked, her voice hoarse. That I'm a monster. The truth, he replied, his tone cold. That you lied. That you were having an affair. She stood up, her hands clenched into fists. Did you freeze the accounts, Alex? I tried to pay my phone bill and the card wouldn't go through. Is that you? He nodded, not looking away. Yes, the lawyer advised it. To protect us. Us? She raised her voice. You're defending yourself. You want to leave me with nothing. You left me with nothing, Michelle, he said, his voice breaking. You chose him. I'm just trying to. He trailed off, at a loss for words. I don't want to fight, not in front of the kids. She turned away, her shoulders shaking. The doorbell broke the silence. Emily and David stood in the doorway, their faces worried. Emily, in her denim jacket, hugged her father. Dad, what's going on? She asked, her voice shaking. Let's go to the kitchen, Alex said, leading them in. Michelle went upstairs without saying a word. They sat down at the table, and Alex took a deep breath. My mom and I were having problems, he began, trying to keep his voice even. She's dating someone else. I found out recently. Emily covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes filling with tears. How did you know? She whispered. I hired a detective, he admitted. There were signs, lies, calls, trips. I didn't want to believe it, but it's true. David, usually joking, looked at the table. So what now? He asked quietly. Are you going to get a divorce? I don't know, Alex said, his voice heavy. I talked to a lawyer. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out what to do. Why did she do that? Emily asked, her voice breaking. You were perfect. Alex shook his head. Nobody's perfect. She said she felt lonely, but that's no excuse. He looked at them. I don't want you to pick sides. You're our family. This isn't your fault. David nodded, but his fists were clenched. Is she home? I want to talk to her. Not now, Alex said. Give her time, and me too. Emily hugged him, her tears soaking his shirt. We're here for you, Dad, she said. David simply nodded, but his eyes were full of pain. After they left, Alex packed more stuff and drove to the new apartment he'd rented the day before. The small studio in North Austin smelled of fresh paint, and the furniture was minimal. A bed, a desk, a couch. He dropped his bag on the floor and sat on the couch, staring into space. For the first time in 20 years, he was alone, not on a business trip, not in a motel, but truly alone. He opened his laptop, but instead of working, he stared at the wallpaper. A photo of him, Michelle, and the kids laughing around a campfire in Lake Tahoe. He closed the laptop. The phone rang, and he saw Lily's name. Alex, she said, her voice soft. How are you? Bad, he admitted. I talked to her. She confessed. It's Michael Sharp. I'm sorry, Lily said. Do you want me to continue, or something else? No, he replied. That's enough for now. Thank you, Lily. You helped. If anything happens, call me, she said. And hang in there. He hung up, feeling strangely warm at her words. Lily was a stranger, but her support was genuine. He lay down on his bed, staring at the ceiling. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. He took his wedding ring out of his pocket. He turned it over in his fingers. The engraving was still visible. Love, M. He squeezed it, but didn't put it on. Instead, he put it in his desk drawer, closing it with a soft click. The next day, he returned to the lawyer, handed over the signed documents to freeze the accounts. Janet assured him that the process would begin soon. "You're doing the right thing," she said. "This isn't about revenge. This is about protection." Alex nodded, but her words brought no comfort. Rain pounded the windows of his small Seattle apartment, and Alex watched the drops slide down the glass, leaving thin trails behind them. His new life had begun here, in this studio on the outskirts of the city, overlooking the wet streets and distant skyscrapers. His suitcases were still by the door, half unpacked, and on the table lay a lonely box containing the coffee maker he'd bought the day before. The move from Austin had been swift. The decision to accept a transfer to the company's Seattle office had come a week after a conversation with his lawyer. Now, sitting on his creaky couch, he felt like a stranger in this city, but also free of the ghosts of his past. The apartment was modest. One room, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom with worn tiles. He hung a few photos on the wall: Emily and David at graduation, their family trip to Lake Tahoe. He left the photo of Michelle in Austin in a box he hadn't opened. The divorce proceedings had begun. Janet Wilson, his lawyer, had filed papers, and their joint accounts had been frozen. Michelle had called twice, but he didn't answer. Her voice, full of tears and anger, was still in his mind, but he wasn't ready to talk. His first day back in Seattle was tomorrow, and Alex was trying to focus on his new role as a senior engineer on a cloud security project. But his thoughts kept returning to Austin, to Michelle, to her confession, to the pain in Emily and David's eyes when he told them the truth. He opened his laptop to check his email, but instead found himself staring at the wallpaper, a photo of their family on the beach in Galveston. He closed the laptop, feeling a tightness in his chest. The doorbell broke the silence. Alex opened the door to find Emily and David soaking wet in the rain. Emily, in her signature denim jacket, hugged him. "Dad, you live in a puddle," she said, trying to smile. "Welcome to Seattle," he said, ushering them in. David, backpack over his shoulder, looked around the apartment. "Not much," he said, setting his backpack on the floor, "but better than a motel." They sat down at a small table, and Alex pulled out the pizza he had ordered in advance. "How was your trip?" he asked, trying to sound cheerful. "It took a long time," Emily said, taking a bite. "But we wanted to see you. How are you, Dad?" Alex shrugged, his gaze falling on the box with a coffee maker. "Getting used to it. New city, new job. Everything is weird." David frowned, his usually light tone gone. "And Mom? Have you talked to her?" "No," Alex said, his voice quieter. "She called, but I'm not ready. The lawyer is handling the divorce." Emily nodded, her eyes wet. "She called us, said she was sorry, but I don't know how to believe her." "Me too," Alex admitted. "But that's not your concern. You should focus on your studies." "We can't just forget," David said, his voice sharp. "She ruined everything. Why did she do that?" Alex shook his head. "She said she felt lonely, but I felt lonely too. That's no excuse." He looked at them. "I don't want you to hate her. She's your mother." Emily squeezed his hand. "We don't hate you. It's just, it hurts. But we're with you, Dad. Always." "Thank you," he said, his throat tight. "You have no idea how important this is." They talked into the evening, reminiscing about old trips, David's jokes, Emily's dreams of graduate school. When they left, the apartment was quiet again, but their visit left a warmth. Alex went out onto the balcony, breathing in the damp air. The rain had stopped, and the city was aglow. Seattle was foreign, but somehow liberating. The next day, he started work. The office was downtown, a glass building overlooking Puget Sound. His coworkers were friendly, but Alex was distant, immersed in code and meetings. In the evening, he walked along the waterfront, watching the ferries and tourists at Pike Place Market. The city had a life of its own, and he felt like he was part of something new but still foreign. A week later, he decided to call Lily Danvers. Her work was done, but he felt the need to thank her. He dialed her number, standing at the window of his apartment, looking out at the rainy streets. Alex, Lily said, her voice warm. How are things in Seattle? Wet, he replied, grinning. Thank you for everything, Lily. You helped me see the truth. It's my job, she said, but her tone softened. How are you holding up? I'm trying, he admitted. I moved, started a new job, but it still hurts. I understand, she replied. When my marriage fell apart, I thought I'd never recover. But time helps, and a new city is a good start. I hope so, he said. And you? How are you? Closed a couple of cases, she said, thinking about a change of pace. Maybe even stop by Seattle sometime. It's not all rain there, is it? There's more coffee, he joked, and they both laughed. The conversation was light, but there was something warm, almost familiar, about it. Call me if anything happens, Lily said before hanging up. And hang in there, Alex. He smiled, putting his phone away. The conversation with Lily had been short, but he felt a little less lonely. He sat down at the table, opened his laptop, but instead of working, he began to scroll through old photos. One of them was of his and Michelle's honeymoon in Mexico. She was laughing, her hair wet from the sea. He had thought their love would last forever. Now he saw how wrong he had been. He closed the photo and opened a website with information about divorces. Janet wrote that the process would take months, but he already felt cut off from the past. He blamed himself for not noticing her loneliness, for his endless business trips. But her choice, Michael, the lies, Las Vegas, was not his fault. He stood up, went to the window. The rain had started again, but now it seemed not oppressive, but cleansing. He spent the weekend walking around Seattle, exploring coffee shops and parks. He stopped at a bookstore on Capitol Hill and bought a tech magazine, but instead of reading, he looked at the people. Couples, families, singles, they all seemed part of a world he didn't yet fit into. But for the first time in months, he felt like he could chat. Returning to the apartment, he wrote to Emily and David, Seattle is wet but beautiful. Come and show me the city. Emily's reply came quickly. We'll be there soon, Dad. We love you, David added. Only if they have decent pizza there. Alex smiled, feeling warmth spreading in his chest. Seattle greeted Alex in the morning with the smell of freshly brewed coffee and the hum of streetcars outside his apartment window. He stood at the stove, trying to make an omelet, but the eggs stuck to the pan, and he threw the unsuccessful breakfast into the trash with a grin. A month had passed since his move, and he was still getting used to loneliness, to the silence without Michelle's footsteps, to the absence of Emily and David's children's voices. But Seattle, with its rains and noisy streets, was starting to feel like home. Today was a day off, and he was expecting a guest, Lily Danvers, who wrote yesterday that she had arrived in the city. Alex did not know why he agreed to meet, but her call from Austin still left a warm feeling. He pulled on jeans and a sweater, locked up his apartment, and headed to a coffee shop on Capitol Hill. The rain had stopped, leaving puddles on the sidewalk, and the air smelled of wet leaves. Bean and Brew was cozy, with wooden tables and shelves lined with books. Lily was already sitting by the window, her dark hair pulled back into a loose ponytail, a cup of espresso in front of her. She looked up and smiled. Alex, you're just in time, she said, pulling out her chair. Coffee? Yes, black, he replied, sitting down. Good to see you. What brings you to Seattle? Change, she said with a shrug. Closed the agency in Austin. Too much. Past. Want to try something new. Maybe consulting. Or just live without chasing other people's secrets. Alex nodded, feeling a strange kinship with her words. I understand. I'm starting from scratch here myself. He paused, looking at his cup. Thank you again, for everything you've done. It's my job, Lily said, but her smile was soft. How are you? Really? He sighed, sipping his coffee. Honestly, better than a month ago. But it's still, he hesitated. It hurts. Michelle, the divorce, all of it. I blame myself, you know. Maybe I worked too much, or was away too much. Lily shook her head. Don't do this. I blamed myself when my marriage fell apart too. I thought if I'd been different, he wouldn't have left. But the truth is, people make choices. She chose to lie. It's not your fault. Maybe, he said, his voice quiet. But I still think I could have noticed sooner. Asked, talked. We all think so, Lily answered. My ex, I found out he cheated on me after he'd already moved out. I spent months searching for the reasons in myself. But then I realized I can't control his decisions. Only mine. She looked at him. You make your own moves. Moving, working. That's something. Alex smiled, her words like a bomb. You're right. It's just hard to let go. I know, she said, sipping her espresso, but Seattle's a good place for a fresh start. Rain washes away a lot. They talked for an hour, moving from the past to the present. Lily told him about her time as a police officer and how she left after her divorce to start an agency. Alex shared stories about his business trips and how he loved coding but hated corporate games. The conversation was light, but there was something genuine about it that Alex hadn't felt in a long time. When he returned to the apartment, he received a message from Emily, Dad, I'll come by tomorrow. We needed to talk. He smiled, but there was a tremor in his chest. Emily rarely wrote so earnestly. The next day she showed up at lunch, her denim jacket wet from the rain. They sat on the couch, and she got straight to the point. Dad, I saw Mom, she said, her eyes serious. She's in bad shape, crying, saying she ruined everything. But I don't want to talk about her. I want to talk about you. About me? Alex asked again, frowning. Yes, she nodded. You're alone all the time. I know it hurts, but you have to move on. Not just with work, but with people. You're closing yourself off, Dad. I can see it. Alex shook his head. I'm not closing myself off. I'm just not ready after everything that happened. I know, she said, squeezing his hand. But I went through this too. A guy in college broke my heart. I thought I'd never trust anyone again. But then I realized that if I didn't try again, I'd be alone forever. You deserve to be happy, Dad. He looked at her, her words touching something inside him. You're too smart for 20, he said, smiling. It's from you, she said, laughing. Just give yourself a chance. Meet someone. Go for coffee. Don't sit in this apartment alone. I'll think about it, he promised, although the thought of meeting new people was frightening. But her words stayed with him, like an echo of his conversation with Lily. On Monday, there was a crisis at work. Their cloud security project had a bug in the code that threatened to delay the release. Alex, as a senior engineer, took over the team. He spent the night in the office, parsing lines of code while his colleagues argued over deadlines. By morning, he'd found a vulnerability in the encryption protocol and proposed a patch. His boss, Mike, patted him on the shoulder. You saved us, Trenton, he said. That's worth the bonus. Alex smiled, but the fatigue was taking its toll. He went out to the Puget Sound embankment to get some fresh air. The sea smelled of salt, seagulls screamed overhead. He felt proud of his work, but the emptiness inside was still there. He took out his phone and texted Lily thanks for the coffee. If you're ever in Seattle, let me know. The answer came quickly, definitely. Don't stay in the office too long, engineer. The Puget Sound waterfront sparkled in the rare Seattle sun, and Alex walked next to Lily, listening to the waves lap against the pier. It had been 2 months since their first coffee date, and their friendship had become a familiar part of his new life. They met once a week, sometimes at a coffee shop, sometimes at a park, swapping stories about work and the past. Today, Lily had suggested they go for a walk, and Alex had agreed, glad for the distraction from his divorce. But there was something mischievous in her smile, and he hadn't expected one comment from her to change everything. You know, Lily said, adjusting her scarf, sometimes I feel like I'm part of your investigation. It all started with a folder and a photo, and now we're hanging out like old friends. Alex froze, his steps halting. The word investigation hit him like an echo from Austin. the folder with Michelle's photos, her lies, the pain of betrayal. He looked at Lily, trying to figure out if she was joking, but fear was already growing in his chest. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice tight. Lily frowned at his reaction. "Hey, I was just kidding. You know I don't." "I don't know," he interrupted, his tone sharpening. "This isn't a joke, Lily. You helped me find out my wife was cheating. And now, what? Am I just another case to you?" Her eyes widened, and she took a step back. "Alex, are you serious? That's not what I meant. We're friends, I thought." "Friends don't joke about things like that," he said, his voice shaking. He turned to leave, but Lily grabbed his sleeve. "Wait," she said, her tone firm. "You can't just walk away accusing me of something I didn't do. Explain what's wrong." Alex clenched his fists, feeling old wounds reopen. "You know what I've been through. Michelle lied to me for months. I can't. I can't trust again and then find out it's a game." Lily let go of his hand, her face pale. "A game? You think I'm playing with you?" Her voice cracked. "I told you about my divorce, about my pain. I was honest. And you see me as, what? An enemy?" He opened his mouth, but no words came. Her pain was real, and he suddenly realized he had transferred his fear onto her. "I'm sorry," he said, but his voice was weak. "I didn't mean to. It's just too much." Lily shook her head, her eyes glittering. "I need time, Alex. Call me when you figure it out." She turned and walked away, her scarf fluttering in the wind. Alex stood on the embankment, his heart pounding. He hadn't meant to hurt Lily, but her joke had awakened a fear he thought he'd left behind in Austin. He returned to the apartment, but the silence only made him feel more guilty. He wrote to her, "Sorry, I went too far," but there was no answer. The next day, he called Sarah, who was in Seattle for a conference. They met at a bar near his office that smelled of hops and fried onions. Sarah was as forthright as ever. "What did you do?" she asked, sipping her beer. "Alex told me about the fight, about Lily's joke, about his fear." "I lost my temper," he admitted. "She didn't deserve it, but I'm afraid to trust again." Sarah nodded, her eyes serious. "You've been through hell, Alex. It's okay to be wary, but Lily isn't Michelle. If you care about her, don't lose her because of the past." "How do I fix this?" he asked, looking into his coffee. "Talk," she said. "Not on the phone, but honestly. And think about therapy. I went after my divorce. It helped me figure out why I suspect everyone." "Therapy?" he asked, frowning. "I'm not one of those who—" "I know," she interrupted, smiling. "But it's not a weakness. It's a way to avoid dragging old wounds into a new life. Think about it." Alex nodded, her words sinking in. That night, he found a family therapist in Seattle online and booked a trial session. He texted Lily again, "Can we meet? I want to explain everything." She replied an hour later, "Okay. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., same coffee shop." The bean and brew was quiet, save for the hum of the coffee machine. Lily sat by the same window, her expression wary. Alex sat across from her, his hands clutching his cup nervously. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I was wrong. Your joke, it touched something old. I transferred my fear onto you." Lily nodded, her gaze softening. "I didn't mean to hurt you, but it hurts me that you thought I was playing. I was being honest with you, Alex." "I know," he said, looking into her eyes. After Michelle, I'm afraid to trust again. But you're not her, and I don't want to lose our friendship." She paused, then sighed. "I'm scared too, you know. My divorce, it taught me to keep people at a distance. But with you, it's easy, and that's scary." Alex felt warmth at her words. "Maybe we both need help," he said. "I made an appointment with a therapist. I want to figure this out. And, if you don't mind, we could try a session together. As friends." Lily raised an eyebrow, but smiled. "Therapy? You're full of surprises. Okay, I'm in." A week later, they were sitting in the office of Dr. Ellen Martin, a kind-eyed woman in her 50s. The office was cozy, with a soft sofa and shelves of books. "So," Ellen began, "why are you here?" Alex told of the fight, of his fear of betrayal. "I transferred my wounds to Lily," he said. "I don't want to repeat that." Lily added, "And I'm afraid that if I open up, I'll get hurt again. But I want to be Alex's friend, a real one." Ellen nodded, writing something down. "You've both been betrayed. It leaves scars, but you're here, and that's a step." She looked at them. "Trust is built through honesty. Try sharing one fear or hope every day. It will strengthen your bond." The session lasted an hour, and they left with homework to talk about something personal every day. That evening, Alex wrote to Lily, "Today, I was afraid that you wouldn't forgive me, but I hope that we will become closer." She replied, "I was afraid you only saw me as a detective. I hope you see me." The next day, they met in the park, swapping short stories. Alex about his first business trip, Lily about her school friendship. Their conversations became lighter, but deeper. The fight had left its mark, but now it felt like a bridge, not a wall. Alex felt like he was beginning to trust for the first time in months, not completely, but enough to move on. The small apartment on the outskirts of Seattle smelled of fresh paint and coffee. Alex sat at a folding table covered in blueprints and laptops, his fingers rapidly typing out code for a prototype security system. Across the street, Lily flipped through a presentation, her pen underlining key words. Their idea, Safehome Tech, a smart home security startup, had been hatched over coffee a month earlier, when Lily suggested combining her business acumen with Alex's engineering skills. Now their apartment was an office, and the dream was taking shape. "If we want to attract investors, we need a demo," Lily said, pushing her laptop away. "People need to see how it works. Cameras, sensors, an app, all in one." "First, we need the sensors to work without failures," Alex answered, without looking up from the screen. "If the system freezes, no video will save it." Lily rolled her eyes, but smiled. "You and your code, we won't sell anything unless we show it's cool." Alex leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "I understand, but if the technology fails, marketing won't help. Give me a week, and I'll get the sensors right." "A week?" she asked, her tone sharpening. "We have a meeting with an investor in 5 days. If we don't show a prototype, they'll go to the competition." Alex frowned, feeling annoyed. "Lily, I can't conjure up stable code overnight. This isn't a presentation, this is security. People will rely on us." She stood up, crossing her arms. "I know it's important, but without money, we can't launch anything. Marketing isn't just pictures, it's what brings in funding." They fell silent, tension in the air. Alex stared at the blueprints, his thoughts racing. Lily was right, their startup wouldn't survive without investors. But he couldn't sacrifice quality for speed. He remembered his years at the Texas company, where haste led to mistakes, and mistakes led to failure. "Okay," he said finally, his voice calmer. "Let's find a compromise. I'll speed up the work on the sensors, but you give me 3 days. And you start with a demo video, using my draft code for visualization." Lily nodded, her shoulders relaxing. "Deal. 3 days. But I want you to be at the investor meeting. Your passion for technology is what's going to hook them." "Okay," he agreed, smiling. "But without your energy, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere." She laughed, turning back to her laptop. "Dream team, huh?" They worked until midnight, Alex debugging code and Lily preparing slides. The apartment hummed with their energy, the printer churning out schematics, the coffee maker hissing, Lily's phone vibrating with messages from potential clients. Alex felt like he had a purpose for the first time in months that wasn't tied to the pain of the past. But shadows of Austin still flickered. He thought of Michelle, her tears, her confession. He pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the code. 2 days later, Emily and David arrived in Seattle. They walked into the apartment, looking around in surprise. Dad, is this an office? David asked, pointing to the cluttered desk. Something like that, Alex said, hugging them. Safe home tech. Lily and I make a home security system. Emily smiled, her eyes shining. That's cool. You look alive, not like Austin. I'm trying, he said, feeling the warmth of her words. Want some pizza, or want to show us what we're building here? Pizza, David said, grinning. But show me later. Maybe I'll ask you for an internship. They sat down at the table, and Alex explained the project. Motion sensors, cameras, a remote control app. Emily listened attentively, and her questions about data security made Alex smile. You're just like me when I was your age, he said. You check everything. That's from you, she said, laughing. Dad, I'm proud. You didn't just survive. All this. You're building something new. David nodded, his tone more serious. And Mom? She called me. She said she misses me. Alex paused, his smile fading. She called me too, but I'm not ready to talk yet. The divorce is going on. The lawyer is doing everything. Emily squeezed his hand. We understand. It's just, we want you to be happy. And this Lily, is she cool? She's a friend, Alex said quickly, but he felt a warmth in his chest. And a business partner. I couldn't do it without her. Well, David said, raising an eyebrow, sounds like the start of something bigger. Don't start, Alex said, but he couldn't help but smile. The children left that evening, leaving him with the feeling that he was not alone. Their pride was like an anchor holding him in his new life. The next day, Alex and Lily met with the investor in downtown Seattle. The office was modern, with a view of the bay. The investor, a woman in her 40s named Clara, listened to their pitch. Lily spoke confidently about the market, about how their app would make life easier for homeowners. Alex showed off the prototype, a motion sensor that triggered his phone. Clara nodded, but her questions were tough. Competitors are already offering similar systems, she said. Why should I choose you? Because our product is reliable, Alex replied, his voice firm. We're not chasing speed, we're making a system that won't fail. I'm an engineer myself, I know what safety is. Lily added, and we offer simplicity. One click and you control your home. It's not just technology, it's peace of mind. Clara smiled. Okay, send me a business plan. I'll think about it. They walked out of the office, full of energy. We got them, Lily said, clapping Alex on the shoulder. You were good. You too, he replied, feeling his weariness give way to hope. This is a beginning, isn't it? The beginning, she agreed, her eyes shining. Back at the apartment, they continued working. Alex tweaked the app, Lily wrote a business plan. But their arguments now felt less like conflicts and more like part of the process. They had learned to listen to each other. Alex conceded on marketing ideas, Lily on technical priorities. By midnight, they had finished a draft plan, and Lily raised her coffee. Here's to Safehome Tech, she said. To us, Alex added, clinking his cup. He looked at her, feeling their friendship becoming something more. Not a romance, not yet, but a partnership that gave him strength. Morning light filtered through the blinds of Safehome Tech's makeshift office, where Alex and Lily were preparing for another meeting. Their studio apartment was now littered not only with blueprints, but also with boxes of prototype sensors and cameras. In the 3 months since the startup launched, they had attracted their first customers, a few homeowners in Seattle testing their security system. But growth brought new challenges. Orders were piling up, and their 2-person team was struggling to keep up. Alex, sitting at his laptop, checked a bug report in the app, his eyes burning with fatigue. We're running out of time, he said, pushing the laptop away. 2 system failures in a week. At this rate, customers will leave. Lily turned around from the sales charts. We're growing, Alex. It's okay to have bugs, but we need more people and money. She pointed to the numbers. If we don't hire developers, you'll burn yourself out. I know, he replied, rubbing his temples. But I don't want to release an unfinished product. People trust us with their homes. Lily nodded, her face serious. Agreed. But without scaling, we won't retain clients. I found another investor. He wants a demo tomorrow. If everything goes well, we can hire a team. Alex sighed, feeling the pressure. Safehome Tech was his salvation, but every day brought new challenges. Last week, he'd worked until 3 in the morning debugging code while Lily negotiated with suppliers. Their partnership, born of friendship, was their strength, but the stress was starting to take its toll. In the morning, their conversation was interrupted by a call from a client. "Your system is frozen," said an irritated voice. "The cameras are not working. What the hell?" Alex apologized, promising to fix it. He spent the day in the office, poring over the code while Lily calmed the client. By evening, he'd found the problem a glitch in the cloud server and pushed out an update. But a call from another client told him about the competition, Securenist, which was offering a similar system at a lower price. "They're calling our customers," Lily said, her voice tense. "If we don't hold the market, they'll crush us." Alex clenched his fists, looking at the screen. "We're better," he said. "Their system is cheap, but unreliable. I've seen their reviews. We need to show that we're unique." "How?" Lily asked, sitting down opposite. "We don't have much time. The investor is tomorrow, and Securenist is already breathing down our necks." "Let's add a feature," he suggested. "Real-time alerts with AI threat intelligence. That'll set us apart. I'll start coding today." Lily raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? It's a lot of work, and there's hardly any time." "I can handle it," he said, his voice firm. "You do the pitch. Show them we're not just a product, we're a solution." She nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "Okay, but if you don't get enough sleep, I'll kill you." They both laughed, the tension easing. The next 2 days were a whirlwind. Alex coding the AI notifications, Lily preparing slides and calling clients. They spent the night before the meeting in the apartment, testing the demo. The prototype worked flawlessly. The sensor detected movement, the camera turned on, and the app sent a notification with an analysis. Potential threat, unknown object. Lily clapped her hands. "This is brilliant," she said. "We're going to tear them apart." The meeting with the investor, Mr. Chen, took place in a skyscraper in downtown Seattle. Alex showed a demo, explaining how AI could distinguish threats from harmless movements, like pets. Lily added numbers, the growth of smart systems, their current customers. Chen, a man in his 50s with a shrewd gaze, nodded. "Impressive," he said. "Securenist offers cheap solutions, but yours looks more reliable. Send me a contract, I'll sign it." They walked out of the office, barely containing their smiles. "We did it," Lily said, clapping Alex on the shoulder. "Big contract. Now we can hire a team." "And improve the servers," he added, his voice full of relief. "We'll hold the market." They celebrated at the coffee shop, ordering coffee and cake. Lily raised her cup. "To Safehome Tech, and to us." "To us," Alex agreed, clinking glasses. Their eyes met, and he felt a warmth that was no longer just friendly. But he pushed the thought away, concentrating on his coffee. Back at the apartment, Alex received a message from Emily. "Dad, Mom called. She's having money problems. Something with the house." He frowned as he opened his laptop. Janet, his lawyer, had sent an update. The divorce was going ahead, but Michelle had requested access to the accounts. Alex knew the freeze had hit her hard, and her words about regret still echoed in his mind. He called Janet. "Is Michelle in trouble?" he asked, his voice level. "She mentioned the mortgage difficulties," Janet replied. "But that's her responsibility. You're not obligated to help until the court decides." Alex paused, looking at the photos of the children on the wall. He didn't want to take revenge on Michelle, despite the pain. She had been a part of his life for 20 years, Emily and David's mother. He transferred her $5,000 from his personal account, writing, "For the mortgage. That's all." The answer came an hour later. Thank you, Alex. I'm sorry. He did not answer, but felt like some of the weight had been lifted from his shoulders. It wasn't forgiveness, but closure. The next day, he told Lily about it as they unpacked boxes of new sensors. You did the right thing, she said, her voice soft. Not for her, but for yourself, to move on. Maybe, he replied, smiling, but I'm glad we're building this together. It keeps me going. Lily looked at him, her eyes warm. We're a good team, she said, and this is just the beginning. The evening breeze off Puget Sound tugged at Alex's hair as he stood on the wooden pier, watching the water shimmer in the sunset. Lily was at his side, her coat flapping in the wind, a paper cup of coffee in her hands. They often walked here after work on Safehome Tech, but today Alex felt his heart beat faster. In his pocket was the small box he'd bought a week ago, on impulse after their last investor meeting. Their friendship, born of pain and partnership, had blossomed into something more, and he knew he was ready to take the next step. It's beautiful, isn't it? Lily said, looking out at the bay. Seattle has a way of surprising you. Yes, Alex said, his voice a little hoarse. He turned to face her, his hand clutching the box nervously. Lily, I want to tell you something. She looked at him, her eyebrows raised. Something serious? You look like you're planning on coding all night. He smiled, but his fingers shook as he pulled out the box and opened it. The simple silver ring glittered in the sunset light. Lily, you helped me out of the darkness, not just with business, but with everything. I didn't think I could trust again, but with you, I'm willing to try. He paused, his throat tightening. Marry me. Lily froze, her eyes widening. She looked at the ring, then at him. Alex, are you serious? Her voice shook, but a smile began to form. I couldn't be more serious, he said, his voice growing firmer. I love you. She laughed, her eyes shining with tears. Damn, Trenton, you know how to surprise me. She stepped closer, cupping his face in her hands. Yeah, of course I do. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they embraced on the pier as seagulls screamed overhead. Alex felt the weight of the last few years lift, replaced by a warmth he hadn't felt since Michelle. But this was different, honest, built on trust. They decided to have a small wedding by Lake Washington, a park outside Seattle. It took a month to plan. Lily chose a simple white dress, Alex a navy suit. Emily and David helped with the planning, their enthusiasm infectious. Dad, this is so cool, Emily said, attaching flowers to an arch by the lake. Lily is the fire. I agree, Alex replied, smiling. Thank you for being here. David, who was carrying chairs, grinned. Just don't make me dance, okay? The wedding day was clear, a rarity for Seattle. The lake sparkled in the sun, and a small group of guests, Emily, David, a few of Lily's friends, and Alex's co-workers had gathered around a wooden arch decorated with white roses. Lily walked toward him, her dress flowing softly, her smile brighter than the sun. Alex watched her, feeling his heartbeat steadily, without fear for the first time in years. The ceremony was short. They exchanged vows they had written themselves. Lily, Alex said, his voice shaking with emotion, you showed me that trust can be restored. I promise to be with you, to listen to you, to build everything with you, from business to life. Lily smiled, her eyes wet. Alex, you gave me a chance to believe in people again. I promise to be your support, your partner, your family. The guests applauded, Emily wiped away tears, and David winked at his father. After the ceremony, they had a picnic by the lake, sandwiches, wine, laughter. Alex danced with Lily to music from a portable speaker, feeling younger, lighter. Emily and David joined in, their jokes filling the air with warmth. Back at the apartment, Alex found the letter that had been delivered that morning. The envelope was from Michelle, her handwriting familiar but distant. He opened it, Lily sitting next to him, holding his hand. Inside was a short message. Alex, I heard about your wedding. I'm happy for you. Sorry for everything. I wish you happiness. Michelle, he read it twice, his throat tightening. He felt no anger, only quiet acceptance. "Are you okay?" Lily asked, her voice soft. "Yes," he replied, folding the letter. "This is the end. I'm ready to move on." She squeezed his hand, and he smiled. Michelle was part of his past, but Lily was his present. He put the letter in the drawer, next to the engagement ring from Michelle that he never wore again. Safehome Tech was thriving. The contract with Mr. Chen brought in funding, and they hired 3 developers and a marketer. The office moved from an apartment to a small building in downtown Seattle, overlooking the bay. Alex led the tech side, fine-tuning the AI notifications that had become a hit with customers. Lily led the negotiations, her energy attracting new partners. They worked as a unit, their arguments now ending in laughter. "We did it," Lily said one evening as they checked the reports. 50 clients in a month. That's more than I expected. "And no failures," Alex added, smiling. "I told you that reliability is important." "And I told you that marketing sells," she replied, nudging him with her shoulder. They laughed, and Alex felt like their partnership was more than a business. It was a family he was building anew. He remembered Austin, the empty house, the pain of betrayal. But now, with Lily by his side, he saw a way forward. Emily and David called each other every week, sharing news. Emily was preparing for an internship at the lab. David joked about his engineering projects. "Dad, are you the boss now?" he asked one day. "Can I work at Safehome Tech?" "Finish college first," Alex replied, laughing. "But we'll find a place for you." That evening, sitting with Lily on the balcony of their new apartment, Alex looked out at the lights of Seattle. "I didn't think I'd be happy again," he said, his voice quiet. "Thank you." "It's us," she replied, squeezing his hand. "Together." He nodded, feeling the past finally slip away. The wedding, Michelle's letter, the success of Safehome Tech. It was all a new beginning. He closed his eyes, breathing in the cool air, and for the first time in years, he believed that the future could be bright. The morning fog was rolling over Lake Washington, and Alex stood on the porch of his new home, holding a mug of coffee. The log cabin, surrounded by pine trees, had been his and Lily's sanctuary, the place where they'd begun a new chapter after their wedding. It smelled of fresh wood and the muffins Lily baked for breakfast. It had been a year since Alex had left Austin, leaving behind the pain of Michelle's betrayal. Now, looking out over the lake, he felt a peace that had seemed impossible just a short time ago. Lily came out onto the veranda, her hair disheveled and a plate of warm buns in her hands. "Good morning, engineer," she said, smiling. "Already dreaming of a new code?" "Maybe," he said, taking the bun, "but more about how we got here." He looked at her, his eyes warm. "Thank you." She squeezed his hand. "It's us, Alex. Together." They sat at a table on the porch, looking out over the lake. Their lives were now rhythmic. Mornings with coffee and plans, afternoons with work on Safehome Tech, evenings with conversations and laughter. The company was growing faster than they expected. The contract with Mr. Chen brought in funding, and they hired a team: 2 developers, a marketer, and a user interface designer. The office moved to a building overlooking Puget Sound, and their smart security app became popular with Seattle homeowners. "Emily and David are coming today," Lily recalled, sipping her coffee. "They want to see our palace." "A palace?" Alex laughed. "It's just a house. But I'm glad they're coming." Emily and David became frequent visitors. Emily, a senior at the University of Texas, was preparing for graduate school, and David, now a sophomore at A&M, increasingly talked about an internship at Safehome Tech. Their visits filled the house with warmth, reminding Alex of the family he had maintained despite his divorce. By midday, the kids had arrived, and their car was parked in the driveway. Emily ran out, hugging her father. "Dad, this place is awesome," she said, looking around the house. "You and Lily are really cool." David, carrying his backpack, grinned. "Not bad, Dad. But where's your supercomputer? I thought you were setting up a hacker den here." "Everything is in the office," Alex replied, laughing. But I can show you the app. Want to test it? They walked into the house, and Lily set the table. Fried chicken, salad, homemade lemonade. This looks like Christmas, Emily said, sitting down. Lily, you're officially the best. I try, Lily replied with a wink. But your dad contributed too. He's a coffee master now. It's true, David said, sipping his lemonade. Dad, you've really changed. In a good way. Alex smiled, but his eyes grew thoughtful. You have no idea how much you mean to me, he said. After everything, you kept me afloat. Emily squeezed his hand. We're always here for you, Dad. And Lily, she's awesome. You two are like a superhero team. Lily laughed, but her eyes were warm. Thank you, Emily. You're part of our team, too. After lunch, they walked by the lake, David throwing rocks into the water, and Emily talked about her plans for graduate school. I want to study ecology, she said, but maybe I'll work with you this summer. Marketing, what do you say, Lily? You're accepted, Lily replied, smiling, but only if you can keep up with my pace. They returned to the house that evening, and Alex showed the kids the Safehome tech app. He played the demo, the camera in the living room detected movement, and the phone immediately issued a notification. Potential threat, guessed. David laughed. I'm the threat? Cool, Dad. This is just the beginning, Alex said. We're planning a new product, a facial recognition system. It'll be ready by next year. Seriously? David asked, his eyes lighting up. Can I help you with the code? Finish your studies, Alex replied, but his tone was warm. We'll talk later. With the kids gone, the house was quiet again, but now it was a cozy quiet. Lily sat on the couch, leafing through company reports. We hired another developer, she said, and the feedback from customers is great. I think we'll be national by spring. That would be cool, Alex said, sitting down next to him. But you know what's cooler? That we're doing it together. She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. You're getting sentimental, Trenton. Maybe, he replied, kissing her forehead. But I like it. That night, lying in bed, Alex stared at the ceiling, listening to Lily's breathing. He remembered his journey, the empty house in Austin, the pain of Michelle's betrayal, the fear of trusting again. Back then, he didn't believe he could be happy again. But now, with Lily by his side, his children supporting him, and Safehome tech growing every day, he felt like he had found his place. He stood up and went to the window. The lake reflected the stars, and he thought of Michelle's letter, which he had received before the wedding. Her words, I'm sorry for everything, were the last bridge to the past that he crossed. He was no longer angry, no longer blaming himself. He forgave not for her sake, but for his own. The next day, he and Lily drove to the office. The team was gathered in a conference room discussing the new product. Face recognition is the next step, Alex said, showing the blueprints. We can integrate it with the current app and add an option for users. It's expensive, Lily said, but her tone was thoughtful. But if we do it, the competition will be left behind. We will, he replied, his voice confident. We've already proven that we can. The team applauded, and Alex felt a surge of pride. Safehome Tech wasn't just a business, it was proof that he could start over. He looked at Lily, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. They were partners, spouses, and a family. That evening, they returned home, and Lily cooked dinner pasta with a sauce she had learned to make from her aunt. They ate on the veranda, discussing plans. Maybe we should add a smart lock feature, Lily suggested, sipping her wine. Good idea, Alex said, but only if you don't make me write the marketing copy. She laughed, bumping her shoulder with him. Deal. You the code, I'll the words. Later, when Lily was asleep, Alex went out onto the porch. He remembered his first day in Seattle, when the rain seemed endless and the future was unclear. Now he saw it clearly: the house, Lily, the kids, Safehome Tech. He had been through betrayal, pain, doubt, But he had found something more: trust, love, purpose. He went back inside, lay down next to Lily, feeling her warmth. Tomorrow would be a new day, and he was ready for it. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.